All right. First, say what your name is.
My name is James F. McCarthy, Senior. I got a son that's a junior. Uh, my mama and daddy came from Sevier, Nebo, and Bridgewater, up around Marion, North Carolina. They came to Bowling Green, South Carolina. They had 3 children. Archie, Bob, and May. And Bob and Archie was 8.5 or 9 years old, and Bob was about 7 or 8 years old. They went to work in the Bowling Green spinning mill down there, and they were so small they had to put them on boxes to so they could reach the frames up there to krill them. And my daddy and his brother went to work there. Then they moved to Gastonia, down to at the Osceola Mill. By that time, other children came along. In 1933, my daddy was working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. There was about 9 children then. And his paycheck in 1933 or 34 at Christmas came to $5.75. They took 50 cents out for the coal, and the 60 cents we was paying rent on the house, and that's what he had left for that Christmas. I went to work in the Osceola Mill, making $22 a week. Then I went to work at various mills, but the pay never increased. You never knew who owned the mills because they was individually owned. And then I went to work at the Clare Mill, which was in the CDA. Now we knew who owned them. And they had a store, they had a grocery store, they had a coal yard, they had clothing store, and I have seen people, I never did participate with their company stores, but I have seen people just draw a piece of paper in their paychecks. They was paying off in cash in, but they would just draw a piece of paper, blank piece of paper, because they done took all their pay up at the company store, they called it.
What did CDA stand for?
Clare, Dunn, and Armstrong.
And where was it at?
It was up there where it's on Marietta Street. The Clare was over on Broad Street, and I believe it's 6th Avenue, and Armstrong was right there where Community Bank is now.
Okay.
That was the Armstrong mill there. And now, all mills, some owned them and some didn't own them. They had what they call dope shacks, which that has nothing to do with narcotics. We just called them dope shacks. And you could borrow money. Of course, you had to pay them interest back. And that's where you got your soft drinks and your cake, or if you wanted to charge it, they'd charge it.
Why do they call them dope shacks?
Well, I don't know why they called them dope shacks. That was just their name.
Oh, for like the Coca-Colas and stuff?
Huh?
Sell drinks like Coca-Cola?
Yeah, Coca-Colas and double colas and so on and so forth. And now, up there at the CDA, their grocery store furnished all the knickknacks, lunch wagon they called it. It come through the mail. They owned it, and you charged, lunch, or if you didn't take your lunch, most of the times we just carried a biscuit. And what gets me, the milk gravy we used to eat, or the sausage gravy, and we had sausage biscuits and ham biscuits, and we was ashamed of them, but Hardee's is made a fortune off of it.
Yeah.
Selling stuff that we was ashamed to eat, but we had to eat it because that's the hog killing time, so on and so forth. Now, things kind of changed a little bit when corporations started taking over the mills.
Do you remember about what year?
I don't remember what year, but it was in Textiles Incorporated. I forgot who the bankers was and all. It formed Textiles Incorporated. Now things got just a tad better then, because they usually done away with their company stores.
Mm-hmm.
Now, times is hard, but everybody was in the same boat then.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was in the same boat, so
How old were you when you worked in the mill?
16. 16 years old. And let's see what else. Things that I can remember.
Do you remember Bob or Archie saying anything about working in the mill?
Oh yeah, Bob and Archie. Archie was the oldest of 11 children. Bob was the next oldest. And when they was working in the spinning mill, now this was told to me because I wasn't on the scene.
Yeah.
That they had to, they built them little boxes where they could scoot along the frames so they could reach the top to creel the frames that they was running. I believe it was called intermediates. That was the name of the frame. And they had to have a box to stand on so they could reach the top thing. But I can say this, young people now ought to have to go through a little bit of what we went through and make them a better person. I just don't know. But you know, people holler about the mills being gone. Well, the mills already got gone in the 30s and the 40s. They are evaporated from the city of Gastonia because the people that owned all these mills, they wouldn't let no other industry come on. The only industry, well, they had machine shops, but the only industry that came in was Wicks Corporation, and it would have never happened if it hadn't been for some bankers here in Gastonia. They're the ones that brought Wicks. That was the first industry outside of the cotton mills. The cotton mill owners kept industry out of Gaston County because they had a stranglehold on the people. We was more or less, we had our freedom, but we was more or less slaves to the textile industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it now. Everybody's got an opinion, but if you'd asked people, I'm 78 years old, and if you'd ask people, it's near my age and come up when I did, they would tell you the same thing. The mills are left here in the 30s and 40s, and this county would be an industry county of plenty of industry in here, but the mill owners just wouldn't let it come in. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I want to ask you something about Archie and Bob on those little boxes. Did they, I think I remember something about some wheels put on the boxes so they could push them down the line?
Yeah, they put wheels on the boxes so they could roll them down the front of the spinning frame, the intermediates, or slubbers is what you wanted to call them. They was, things went cotton, went from the opening room to the cards. From the cards, it went to the header lap machines. The header lap machines, it went to the finishing lap machines. The finishing lap machines went to the combers. The combers went to the drawing. And then the drawing went to the slubbers. The slubbers, it went to the intermediates. The intermediates went to the jacks. And then off the jacks, it went in the spinning room.
Which did you?
That was in the card room. That's where I worked. I worked in the card room.
Oh, okay.
Now the spinning room, I don't know what order it went in the spinning room. I believe it was spinning. Off the spinning, it went to, I forget what it went to then, but then it wound up at the spoolers, and then the last thing in the mill was the winders, and the winders, they shipped them out, shipped the stuff out there, the threads.
Now, what mill did Grandpa McCarthy work in Gastonia?
My daddy worked in the Osceola mill. When he come from Bowling Green, we lived in an Osceola mill house. And if you lived in Osceola, if you lived in a textile house, you worked at their textile mill. Now, if you didn't work at their mill, you couldn't have their house. So, my daddy went to work at Osceola, and his brother, Tom, went to work at Osceola. And I had a brother that worked at the Seminola, and another brother that worked in I believe he worked at the Victory. You moved around a lot in the mills. Like, you lived in the house had just you couldn't live in it. So then you went to another mill and got you another house. Is a little bit better than the one you was living in. And that's the way you went around from mill to mill to mill. But we stayed at the Osceola. We kind of kept our house a little maintained. But a lot of people, they had to move out of their house because, like I say, you didn't know who owned them, and you didn't have nobody to go to, because you couldn't find out who owned them. Mm-hmm. But now I do know who owned the CDA, the Claire Dunn and Armstrong. Now I ain't gonna mention their name, but everybody's my age know who owned them, who owned the CDA.
Well, do you remember anything about being a child playing in the Mill Village?
Oh, yeah, look. The thing about the Mill Village, the Seminola and the Osceola, everybody had a baseball team. And it wasn't an organized ball, it was just we'd just go up to the Seminola, and all the boys lived on the Seminola would play the Osceola. We'd go to the Victory, and all the youngins that lived over at the Victory Mill Village, we'd play them. We had our own little league, but nothing was organized. We just go from mill to mill to play. Same way with football. And of course we never played basketball. And that just wasn't in the cards for us, that basketball. We had no desire to play it. And but most of our times was spent in our childhood was spent in the woods, camping out, climbing trees, doing this and doing that, uh, building swimming holes. uh, the first swimming hole in Gastonia was Lineberger Park. Cost you a nickel to get in, but nobody had a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to dam up a creek to go swimming. I don't regret a minute of growing up on a mill village because I sure learned a lot. I got educated myself in the mill village with the rest of the youngins. And the thing about it, you at somebody's house playing, and you cut up, by golly, they give you a whooping. And then when you got home, you get another whooping because you wasn't supposed to be cutting up. Of course, it didn't have telephones, but word traveled fast on a mill village. Now I'll tell you it did.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Nah.
Well, okay, Daddy. Thank you. That was great.
Well, most of the times, growing up in 1936, I went to caddy at the city golf course. But now there was men that worked in the mill caddying too. Some fed their families caddying. It was 25 cents for 9 holes. And me and my friend John Bush, we had to wait till all the men got bags, and then that's when they run out of caddies. That's when me and him got the caddy. We was the only boys down there at that particular time.
How old were you?
6 years old.
6. Okay.
Then came 1941. All the men, most all of them, was in service. So that's when boys got to start really caddying. There was no men to compete with. It just the other boys, and most of us had what we called a regular customer. Mine was Fred Schufert. He was a tax man in Gastonia at that particular time in the 40s. He lived over there in Brookwood, right off of Ruby Avenue there. Big old brick house. And I was carrying for Fred one time, and he's let me carry his pocketbook. And I opened his pocketbook, and his 1040 was in there. That's his income tax. And that year, it was probably 1942 or 43. He made $6,000 that year. He had a brand new car, lived in a big brick house over in Brookwood, and I said, good gracious life. Now people make $6,000 a month now. That's how, but they ain't got no more money than he had. He made $6,000. He had a brand new car, 1941 Pontiac. That's what he had. And but that's what I peeped in his pocketbook, and that's what was in there. $6,000 a year he made. That was something. I said, good gracious, he is rich.
Now who, Winnie, Bill, and Jack were in the World War One. Your brothers.
Now in World War
II,
II,
I mean.
it was Winnie, Jack, and Reed. I had 3 brothers in World War One. Then came the Korean War. I had Bill and me. There was 5 of us. And out of our family, there was five children in service. 5 children. My mama, she'd hang stars. If you had like III in World War II, she had a banner the government gave her with 3 stars on it. You hung in your window to let people know that you got sons in service then. But they all came home. But now, me and 2 sisters is the only one living out of 11 young'uns. And I'm the only boy. I got a sister named Dot and one named Juanita. Everybody calls her Toby. And that's the 3 of us that's left out of our generation.
Daddy, do you ever remember the Mills doing anything special for the kids around Christmas time?
Nah. No, they didn't. Now, Christmas time. Now, Christmas, it's every day for young'uns now. Because they got so much stuff. I got great-grandchildren. I got my grandchildren growing up. Well, they got more toys. They got a room full of toys. But now in Christmas, we got an apple, an orange, about 5 nuts, and a little box of raisins in a brown paper bag, and that was Christmas.
Okay.
Now, one Christmas, I had saved up my money caddying, and I bought me a Red Ryder BB gun. Man, was that something else. I showed that thing to everybody. I carried it with me everywhere I went. That Red Ryder BB gun. That's
Okay. Thank you.
Now, we took baths in a wash tub, and that was Saturday only. You took a bath. Now, then as I got older, the barber shops used to let you take a shower for a dime. So on Saturday, everybody was there at the barber shop taking showers.
Which barbershop was it? Do you remember the
Oh,
barbershop?
it was up there, what they call Dixon Block. It was where the Spencer Lumber Company used to be. The buildings is still there. That was the first strip mall there was in Gastonia. I think about now. And the barber shop, there was a grocery store there and a barber shop.
On Franklin?
No, it was on. It's about, well, Spencer Lumber Company is there where Food Line is now on Marietta.
Oh, okay.
And that was, Garrison was 7th Avenue then. And that little strip mall was right behind the South Marietta Street Baptist Church.
Okay.
And that, after, when I'd get a hold of a dime, well, and I can remember picking blackberries. We used to sell them there at the apartments on Marietta Street. All teachers lived there. And we sold strawberries for 10 cents a gallon. And buddy, we'd stay in that Lyric Theater or State Theater all day. We never went to the Temple or the Well because they usually showed them things that we wasn't interested in. We was interested in cowboys and Indian. But then after the Temple and the Webb started showing war, like the Halls of Montezuma and all the war movies, we went to the war movies. We went to them movies then. But
I was just telling about the bath and going to the barbershop, and I interrupted you.
Yeah. Like I say, we took a bath, and the water was outside of our house. It was on the back porch. And people talk about eating out. Now, eating out for us young'uns was out on the back porch. That was eating out. We didn't have to sit at the table. We could go on the back porch and take our plate out there and eat. That was eating out. I can't even remember the first restaurant that I was ever in. I can't remember. I don't know. Uh, Probably when, well, I just don't know. Don't know what the first restaurant.
Probably Miles's.
Yeah, it could have been Miles's, or it could have been Sweetland's. I just don't remember, but it could have been Sweetland's or the Little Chef or the Blue Spark. It was on South Street. It was one of them. That's as well as I can remember it. It had to be plenty of years ago. You just didn't eat out.
Well, the apartments on Marietta, where did the teachers teach at?
What was the name of that school? It's a charter school now.
Central.
Central. Yeah, they taught at Central School.
Was that where you went to school?
No, I went to Victory School.
Oh.
I went to a school. It had the haves and the have-nots, but that didn't bother me a bit. Now, the railroad track run right by the Dixon Mill, the Ruby Mill, the Seminole Mill, and everybody, the Linheads they called us, lived on that side. And the ones over in Hillcrest section, that's Carolina Avenue, and I can't name some of the streets over there. Well, that was the haves, and we were the have-nots. And I know they used to say, "What'd you have for breakfast?" And of course I had flour gravy and biscuits. And them young'uns say, "We had Wheaties or some kind of cereal, and I'd have given my right arm for a bowl of cereal." Now I don't even like cereal. I can afford it and don't even like it.
Is that thing you still taping?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we used to hide with our ham biscuits and sausage biscuits. And the ones that lived over in the Hillcrest section, in the Brookwood station, they had that store-bought bread, we called it, sliced bread. And they have peanut butter and jelly in it. Boy, I'm telling you, it was something. And I finally got me somebody to swap. I swapped a sausage biscuit for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I was in hog heaven.
What about the toilet facilities and
Oh, outside toilets. Oh, you had outside toilets. And some of the people we thought was a little bit better than us, they had a double header seat. They had a two-seater toilet on their outhouse. But we didn't have but a one-seater.
how many bedrooms were in the house?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3. It was 4 bedrooms. We had a big meal house because some of my brothers worked in those sort of too, and the more you had working in the mill, the bigger house you got. I slept with my mom and daddy till Juanita and Toby, she came along. And I remember them waking me up and moving me. And the next morning I had a little sister there at the house. All the young'uns was born at home. There wasn't none born in the hospital.
Did they have like a midwife come out?
No, it's a doctor.
Oh, okay.
What did your mama do? She didn't work in the mill, did she?
She's a housewife. That's all she ever done.
They had borders when she lived in Bridgewater for the
Yeah, well, that's when they was building a dam up there in
She
Lake
fed all
James.
those workers dinner and made her some money.
She cooked for guys that was up there working, and she sold meals. But as far as having a public job, she never had one.
Did she raise a little garden every year to help
Oh,
out?
we had all kinds of gardens. We had corn, and see, she canned. Everybody canned. Not only us, but everybody. They canned tomatoes, green beans, can all the stuff. We'd pick blackberries, wild plums, and then she would can them, and that's what we would eat in the wintertime.
Now she canned the stuff she grew.
Right.
You didn't go to the produce
No.
market and buy it.
The only thing we used to get out of the store was salt, flour, and now the flour and
Cornmeal and shortening.
hog brand they called it came in pastel color sacks, and after you use the flour and the hog brand feed the hogs and all, then you made dresses, you made shirts, and most women made underpants out of the meal, pastel colored meal. Oh, they had some pretty ones, flowers and this and that, tulips and all, and that's how they made a lot of their clothes. Didn't have no electric sewing machine. They had one of them pedals. Now my sister May was the oldest girl. Now she could really sew, and she's the one that made me some shirts and made some dresses for her and Mama and Dot, and Toby hadn't came along yet.
Did church play an important part of the Mill Village
Oh,
life?
that was the focal point. The church, everybody. You went. You had to have something to do, and church was one of the things. On Sunday, because there wasn't nothing else to do. But of course, after I started caddying, I quit going to church.
What church did you go to?
South Marietta Street Baptist Church. That's where my daddy and my mama belonged to. My sister got married there. And me and my brother Archie had 2 boys. And they was about the same age I was, but I was their uncle anyhow because he was my brother. And it was Charles and Clyde. And all 3 of us hung around together all the time. And I can remember my Sunday school teacher, Charles McCallister. Don't even know whether he's living now or not. And he used to, one time he took us out on Saturday and give us every one a Baby Ruth. Now Baby Ruth, you get sick if you eat it all. But they cost a nickel a piece. Now I don't know where he got the money. They was me, Clyde, Charles, and J.B. Hope, and his brother Richard Hope, and somebody else. I got a picture somewhere, but they was about 5 or 6 of us. And he gave every one of us a bar of candy. That was something else. Osceola Street, the streets didn't have no names. But now I think Osceola Street now, it runs up by where the old mill, well, the mill's still standing there. Them's mill houses. And then you got, if you cross, they stopped about halfway up the dirt road there, and then started the Seminola mill houses, and most of them still standing. I believe it's on Osceola Street, But the street I lived on, it was next to the Duke power plant.
Stevens Avenue. They call it.
Stevens Street's what it's called now, and that was mill houses up that street, and they tore the house that I was born in. They tore it down and put Duke Power office there. Then there was 3 houses up this other street. I don't know what it was, but they belonged to the Ruby Mill. No, there was 4 of them. I don't know how they come about owning them over on their side of the creek, but the Ruby Mill, their houses was up above the creek there, over where there's a chemical plant there now. And, well, of course, the Ruby Mill ain't there no more. But them was all mill houses. They still standing. The first housing development was what they called Tiny Town. That was down Marietta Street on the left hand side of where Angie's Spaghetti House used to be.
Mm-hmm.
They built houses in there. That was the first housing development they was. Turn it on. Well, Tiny Town was the first housing development, and it's still there. Yeah, I don't know the names of the street. Well, the streets didn't have no names then. We just knew where everything was at. Now that Tiny Town is right before you get to the Dixon Mill. Wicks has got a warehouse in there now, in the Dixon Mill.
Why did they call it Tiny Town?
I have no idea.
I do. Little small houses.
Well, the little small houses, that might have been what it was, Tiny Town. They would, hey, now they was kind of, you smile, your teeth hit the wall, it was so small.
Did the mill build Tiny Town?
I forget the guy's name that owned them.
Mm-hmm.
The mill companies had nothing to do with it. Now some of the people that lived in them worked in the mill.
That's what was probably their houses that they bought at the time.
Well, they was brand new houses in, so everybody wanted something new, and so.
Do you ever remember Archie or Bob talking about the strikes? Any strikes? Did they participate in any labor strikes?
No.
Okay.
I never did talk about that. I know one thing. My whole family's Republican.
Except for one.
I ain't gonna say that.
Daddy, when you worked and you lived at home, everybody supported to the household, did they not?
Oh yeah. Everybody chipped in. Then my brother Winnie is the one that he went in service in 1932, and he done 20-some years, 25 years in service. And but one time he came home, and I mean he got discharged and he didn't re-up, but he got drunk. And they lock you up for being drunk in. That's all the police had to do is lock up drunks. And so they put him on chain gang for 30 days. He wouldn't let Daddy or none of them pay his fine. He said, I got myself in, I get myself out. So he done 30 days on chain gang over in Dallas. And when he got out, he went back in service and never did come back out until he retired. I was working at the Victory Mill one time. Got mad, quit, walked out the back door and went over to the Wingate, which was right beside it, and went to work. You didn't fill out no applications then. You just give them your Social Security number, and that was it. A lot of times I'd show up and mail, somebody'd say, they need a card hand at the Myers. And I'd say, I'd show up. I'd tell the foreman there, I said, I heard you need the card hand. He said, yeah. I said, can you run cards? I said, yeah. He said, well, go to work. Give them your Social Security card in the morning. And that was on the third shift. Went to work. My older brother Archie, he worked in the cellar, and he lived in the cellar meal house. But then the Osceolas sold the meal houses. He had a 3-room house, 4-room house, up on the hill there, right beside Uniroyal's chemical plant now. There at Ruby, but it was Osceola Mill House. He paid $400 for his house. Now, when we bought our house on Stevens Street, that's what it's named now, we give $600 for it, and the payments was $2 a week. That was the payment. So that amounted to about $8 a month was house payment. And I have made the house payment one time by caddying that month and saving my money, or giving my mom money to my mama. She made the house payment, me caddying. Made a house payment at 25 cents around. Of course, some of them give you tips and some didn't give you tips. But Fred Shuford's a man I caddied for regular, and he always kind of took care of me as far as tips go.
Well, Archie, so he retired, he stayed at the same mill and retired from the same mill?
Yeah, Archie, he retired from the Ruby.
And he's the one that started working at 8, 9? He's
the one that started working he was 8.5 or 9 years old down spinning. School just didn't happen. I mean, you just didn't.
You didn't need an education to work in the mill.
People should have been interested in it, but they was really working in the mill. You had no future of ever going to college. You'd never get enough money to go to college. So most people didn't even finish high school. Because it was a losing cause, because they never, even I don't know what college cost then, but if it was $1,000, that was beyond the reach of, I would say, at least 60% of the people that lived in Gastonia. College was just out of their reach. I never heard of no scholarships like they do now. They just wasn't none. Of course, that was supposed to have been in the heyday of, but yeah, college was just, nobody ever thought about it. They worked in the mill, or lived on a mill village. In fact, I don't know a single person I grew up with went to college. Not a single one of them.
What about graduating high school?
Very few ever graduated high school. They just didn't do it. They had to kind of make their own. They had to make it on their own. When they got up, anyhow. When they got to be teenagers. They had to make it on their own.
Mhm.
Now my brother Archie and Bob, I don't think they may have went to maybe the 3rd grade. It just wasn't in the book. I can't think of who went the farthest in my family. I believe it was Dot. I believe she graduated from high school when it's over where Ashley Arms is now.
Ashley.
I believe, now I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I believe she's the only one that graduated from high school.
Do you ever run into anybody from the Mill Hill?
Most all of them's dead now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I could name a bunch of them. Hardly ever. I know one of my good friends, Glenn Presley, he got out of the mill, started him a little insurance agency, doing pretty good.
Mhm.
Moved to Charlotte. Guy come in there and robbed him and shot him.
Mm.
But most of my people that I grew up with on the Osceola and the ones that I knew up to Seminole and all, they're a lot of them dead now, and I might have run into some, but I wouldn't recognize
Oh,
them.
okay.
You know, time changed so much. Your looks change. I was trying to think of somebody that I'd seen, but
Store.
there was a drugstore over on York Road over at Victory, where Victory School was, and the pharmacy was Rufus Raxford Sr. and his son is Rufus Raxford Jr. Now I know what happened to him. He's got a road named after him down there in South Gastonia somewhere. He went on to college and became a doctor, a real fine surgeon in Cleveland, but he's as old as I am now. He's 78 years old. He's retired, and I don't know whether he's still living or not. I know he's got a road named after him down New Hope Road there somewhere. It's called Rufus Raxford Road.
Mhm.
Now that's one that I know that went on, from Victory School. Of course, I imagine they other ones, but I don't. You didn't keep up with them because you didn't travel in their circles.
Oh, okay.
Most of them had automobiles when they got 16, but
How'd y'all get around?
rode the bus. See, that's the reason you had to work kind of work you lived, because you had to live on a bus route. You went, go to the mills. You'd go to town, like when I worked down at the Myers Mill, I'd catch a Seminole bus, go uptown, get a transfer, get on the Ridge Mill bus, and it let me off at the Myers Mill.
I said so.